Accused of being a gold digger, I walked away. Now he's asking for rent help. I, 30 female, had been with my boyfriend, 34 male, for 2 years. 6 months ago, we moved in together, and everything seemed to be going great. We had an understanding. We would split chores and bills 50-50 until we decided to have kids. Since I'd be the one putting my body, career, and life on the line, we agreed he would compensate by taking on more responsibilities around the house and financially. I thought we had a clear vision of what an equitable partnership looked like. 2 months ago, he got a slight promotion with a paid bump, so we adjusted how we divided the bills. It seemed fair, but strangely, he started expecting me to take on more of the household chores. It began with small things, like leaving dishes and laundry supplies. We had a lot of work for me to handle, and escalated to him sitting around all weekend while I did both my share and his. When I confronted him, he blamed it on stress and an increased workload. While I'd understand if his job were physically demanding, we both worked corporate desk jobs. His excuse didn't add up. The breaking point came when I discovered mold growing in a pot he was supposed to clean. Instead of washing it, he had just put the lid back on, assuming I wouldn't notice. It was disgusting. I ended up taking a day off work to catch up on all the cleaning he had neglected. The final straw was when he came home without groceries, his responsibility that week, and didn't even inform me. Usually, if one of us was too tired to shop, we'd let the other know, and we'd order food. This time, he didn't bother. I told him that if he was known, he'd no longer willing to do his share of chores. We needed to hire a cleaner and split the cost. He immediately refused, saying he didn't want a stranger in our flat. Then I suggested ordering groceries for delivery to make life easier, but he dismissed it as frivolous spending. So, I proposed a solution. I'd take on the majority of the household responsibilities, but I would reduce my working hours from 5 days to 4 to accommodate the extra work. Naturally, I'd expect him to compensate me for the career sacrifice and pay me an hourly rate based on market salaries for housekeepers. He was stunned and had no response, even though he'd had answers for everything else. That's when it hit me. He wasn't just overwhelmed. He was trying to manipulate me into an arrangement that benefited him while disadvantaging me. If he truly cared about me, he wouldn't try to put me in that position. I asked him if his friends had influenced him, knowing they all struggled to keep girlfriends. He denied it, but then said a proper woman would be happy to look after the house. And that's when he called me a gold digger. I was furious. I wasn't asking for designer handbags for luxury vacations. I was asking for fair compensation for my time and labor, especially since it would come at a cost to my own career. So I shot back, calling him a gold digger for wanting a private chef and housekeeper for free. I was so angry that I told him to stop bragging about his promotion if he couldn't even afford basic help around the house. I added that expecting me to take time off work to clean up after him essentially meant I'd be paying out of my own pocket for the privilege. By this point, I realized I couldn't stay. He was dragging me down when we were supposed to build each other up. The flat was his, so I packed my things while he sulted in silence. As I loaded my car, I told him I felt embarrassed for wasting 2 years on someone who didn't respect me. He told me I'd see sense eventually, but I ignored him and left. I'd blocked him everywhere, but he's been sending messages and voice notes to our mutual friends, asking them to forward them to me. Most of my friends have been supportive and see him as pitiful. One of our mutual male friends mentioned that my ex had recently been watching masculinity podcasts. That explained a lot. It felt like he cared more about those toxic ideas than he ever cared about me. Now he's struggling to afford the rent without my contribution, but I feel no sympathy. He still probably thinks I'm the gold digger for not accepting an unfair division of labor and effort. If other women have experienced something similar, how did you handle it? Looking back, I wish I had addressed a problem sooner instead of letting it build up for 2 months. Moving forward, I've decided I won't enter a relationship without outlining expectations early on. I'm in my 30s now and refuse to deal with men who expect unpaid labor just because society has convinced them it's worthless. Edit. Thank you for the overwhelming support. It's comforting to know so many people have gone through similar situations. It makes me feel less alone. To clarify some points, my ex was the one who created the spreadsheet calculating how we'd fairly contribute based on income. When his pay increased, he started paying €80 more monthly but gained an additional €400 in disposable income. If that was an issue for him, he never communicated it, despite it being his system. We didn't keep a tally of chores. We had our preferences. He liked vacuuming, and I liked putting dishes away. If one of us wasn't feeling well or was swamped with work, we'd help each other out. But when I noticed a consistent pattern of neglect, I couldn't ignore it. The multi-pop was revolting, and the groceries were just a tipping point. I was physically and mentally drained after only 2 months of picking up his slack. I couldn't imagine continuing like that. We discussed kids early on because we wanted a relationship to head in that direction. It wasn't about being ready now, but ensuring our long-term goals aligned. I had no idea he was listening to these podcasts in secret. Normally, we'd share the things we enjoy, like movies and silly videos. Learning about this felt like a betrayal in itself.